you doing?
You can see me, yeah?
Yeah, you fucked up with with I mean, I'm like an expert now on Zoom. This is my
I'm gonna,
Zoom call today.
I'm gonna leave this in, Bob. I'm recording this. I'm gonna leave this in. Okay. This is UMAR AHMED for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. Delighted to have Bob Arum over Zoom. We had a bit of technical difficulties, but we got there in the end. Bob, I wanted to get you on today because a story broke last night from ESPN that Tyson Fury's advisors at MTK are speaking to Saudi Arabia about a potential fight with Anthony Joshua. How long have these talks been going on for, Bob? Can you tell us anything?
Well, MTK, here's what has happened. There are, in effect, there's Eddie Hearn, who promotes Joshua. There's Frank and myself with Fury. I also co-promote Pulev, and PBC promotes Wilder. So we've been getting offers from all over the Mideast, all over the world, on these heavyweight fights. And we felt, at least I felt, and Eddie felt, and Frank, that to avoid the chaos, we designate MTK to field all the offers, not only from the Saudis, but from Qatar, the Emirates, and see what everybody is talking about. You know, I have an expertise in Macau, having done major events in Macau. So I'm talking to people in Macau because that's my field of expertise. MTK, which has its main office in Dubai, has tremendous connections in the Mideast. So when Eddie Hearn, I read a story that Eddie put out that there's been no talks about a Joshua Fury fight. He is totally correct. Totally correct. There can be no talks until we see what we're talking about, what the offers are for either that fight or interim fights like Joshua Pulev, like Wilder and Fury. And then we'll be able to enter talks. And it may be that we do, that Eddie does Joshua Pulev with us, and we do Wilder and Fury with PBC, and then have winners of both fights fight sometime next year, or work out some arrangement where a Fury Joshua fight can take place this year. So that's where we're at now. So everybody is on the same page. We're trying to do this in a logical way. MTK is fielding the offers on behalf of all of us in the Mideast. I'm looking into Macau, where I have very, very good relationships with the concessionaires in Macau, having done so many events there over the years. And we're going to see where we are. And, you know, you absent from this talk at this point is the United States or the United Kingdom, because we don't know when or if this year we'll be able to do events with a live audience. We just don't know. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty. But I think that encapsulates really where we're at. And it doesn't help, you know, and not you, Umar, but you know, some of these journalists trying to get scoops and saying that negotiations are ongoing. None of that is correct. What Eddie said, I read in Boxing Scene this morning, is absolutely correct. There are no negotiations for a Joshua fight with Fury. That would be premature until we know where we're at based on these offers that are being fielded at the current time.
Bob, last time I spoke to you, you said that Wilder was not interested in at all in step aside money. Considering this offer is coming from the Middle East, and we know there's no shortage of money in the Middle East, do you think there could be enough in the pot here to sway Wilder's mind?
That's not a question that can be fielded by myself. I would have as little knowledge of that as you would. I mean, that's a question. If it materializes, let's not, it may never come up. It's a hypothetical. But that's a question that Al Heyman and Shelley Finkel and Wilder would have to decide. That is not something that can be decided by me. All I know is that we have a binding contract for Fury to do a third fight with Wilder. And could there be a step aside for Wilder? Yeah, but that's up to Wilder. That's not up to me. If there is one, whether he would accept it, I have no idea. Same thing with Pulev. I mean, even though I co-promote Pulev, we have not talked to Pulev at all about step aside. Pulev is anticipating a fight against Joshua, a fight that has been signed in a binding agreement. Could Pulev be convinced to step aside? Maybe, but nobody's talked to Pulev about it yet because that would be premature.
Have you talked to Al Heyman or Shelley Finkel at all about step aside money, Bob?
No, why would I? I don't know if I have any step aside money. I don't know. I mean, I haven't got the money to pay him to step aside. So why would I talk to him about it? I mean, the truth is that unless we had something to talk about, why talk about? Why would I talk about step aside with Shelley or with Al Heyman when I'm not prepared to put up the money for the step aside, nor would I want to at this point. Again, it's all premature. Again, these things take time until we work out where we are. I think Eddie would say the same thing. Frank would say the same thing. We're all proceeding, I think, appropriately, one step at a time, right? What happens if the Saudis say, hey, the price of oil is in the toilet, right? $14, $15 a barrel when it used to be 50, 60. We're not prepared to put up a lot of money for a sporting event. They could say that. That's possible, right? All I know is we are in a little bit of a bind in the sense that we don't know when we can go with live events in the UK. I think Frank and Eddie are sorting through that. We don't know when we can go with live events with audiences in the United States. I know we don't know. The NBA doesn't know. Major League Baseball doesn't know. Professional football doesn't know. None of us know. These are extraordinary times. We have never been through times like this. And we're just going to have to feel our way and do the best we can. And I'm glad that in boxing, everybody is proceeding along that route.
Let me ask you this, Bob. Eddie's gone on record and said there have been offers actually sent from various regions from the Middle East. Are you aware of any offers? Because it sounds like from yourself that you're still awaiting an offer from Saudi or Qatar.
A firm offer. We're waiting for, we have offers, but at this point, it's all talk. Until we have firm offers from the people who matter, whether it's the people who did the Joshua Ruiz fight, who are absolutely real and have the authority in the kingdom to do the fight, or whether we get an offer from the sports authority in Qatar, right? Not middlemen, actual offers that you can go to the bank with. At this point, in my opinion, we don't have anything. I believe that in the next week or so, we'll have offers, concrete offers, that together with the MTK people, myself, Eddie, and Frank will be able to review and then to come to some conclusions. But right now, we have nothing that is firm.
At the moment, it sounds like MTK are talking to Saudi Arabia about potential offers, and that conversation ends there with anyone else about this Fury Joshua fight.
Right. Well, see, what happened was, uh, uh, you know, Frank and Eddie don't get along. They don't speak to each other.
We know that, Bob.
You know that. And Eddie has been successful talking with the Saudis. Frank has talked with the Saudis. Everybody seemed like they were getting in everybody's way. And MTK, whose main offices are in Dubai, in the Mideast, they have real good connections. Everybody felt that it would be best if MTK spearheaded those type of office, getting those offers. I have no experience. I have great experience doing events all over the world, but never in the Mideast. So I took myself out of the equation because why would I interject myself? Why would I interject Top Rank when we had no history of dealing in the Mideast, and we didn't know who the players were in Saudi Arabia or Qatar? I have great confidence in the MTK people because they have been dealing in that part of the world for many months and certainly a number of years. So that's where we're at. I think we're all behaving, given that this is boxing, very cautiously and appropriately, and I'm sure something is going to come out of it. What will come out of it, I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, right now, I am looking for Pulev to fight Joshua and win the championship. And I'm looking together with PBC to find an appropriate date and a site for the third Fury Wilder fight.
Bob, are you surprised that the Middle East are still pushing for this fight, considering last time we spoke, you said obviously it might be in doubt from their side because of the oil crisis?
Well, again, I don't know. I mean, I've been informed by the MTK people that despite the oil crisis, that's just a blip on the map, that their interest continues, and they have vast sums available to them to put on events. And again, the powers that be in the Saudi realized that there would be a lot of ups and downs in the oil business, and maybe one day their oil runs out, and they're looking to diversify and build up their tourist business. And what better way than to do a major event over there? So I think certainly the oil prices having gone down from $50 or $60 a barrel to $14, $15 a barrel has some impact, but what it is, I wouldn't know.
Bob, I read some quotes online that you believe Fury Wilder 3, if that is next, happens in November, December rather than October.
Well, the contract is now for October. At first it was July, and we knew that was it turned out to be impractical. So we punted it to beginning of October. I really don't believe that we will be able to, if we're going to do it in the United States, that we could do the event in October for a live audience. I believe it is possible, I don't know whether it's likely or not, but possible for November, December. Now, if we did that fight in the Mideast or in Macau, then certainly we would try to do it in October and maybe November, December. Again, we don't know. I was looking at it as a fight that would take place in the United States. And what I was saying was I thought November or December was more likely than October. I cannot imagine that we will be allowed to do events with spectators, as early as October. But even that, I don't know.
There is a strong chance, then, from what I'm hearing, that Fury Wilder 3 could land in a foreign region. Then,
yeah, I mean, particularly if you can't do events in the United States with spectators, and you can't do events in the UK with spectators. Obviously, we got to find places in the world where we can get a big site fee and do the events with spectators. I mean, that's sort of logical. Now I know Macau is available, and they're going to be up and running. They are up and running now, and they're going to look for big events in the fall and winter. And we've had a whole history, Top Rank does, of doing major events in Macau. It really works out. If an event was in the Mideast, the pay-per-view would do a lot better in the UK because it would be prime time, and it would be in the afternoon in the United States, not as good, anywhere near as good. If it's in Macau, we do the fights like in the past, early in the morning, Sunday morning, where we sold out the arenas then, because these gamblers stay up all night, then they have breakfast, and they come to the fight. And that's prime time in the United States, and it's early hours in the morning in the UK. So that's what we're weighing now. I mean, obviously, if none of this coronavirus had happened, and it was a miracle, we got the February 22nd fight in, that was the last big fight before the coronavirus shut everything down. If we hadn't had the coronavirus, obviously we would have been talking about early October date with a big crowd at the MGM, or we're in uncertain times now.
Well, in terms of this heavyweight picture, let's see what happens. You expect, you said, an offer to come in for this Fury-Joshua fight, a formal one from the Middle East, and then, you can have them conversations with Al and Shelley about step-aside money.
Yeah. Well, but wait a second. There may be offers a lot of ways. For example, the Mideast people that are being talked to by MTK may say, look, we'll pay X dollars for a Wilder Fury fight. We'll pay Y dollars for a Joshua Pulev fight. And then we'll pay Z dollars for the winners to fight. If they say that, that's a possible way that we'll go. In other words, all of this is premature. It's up in the air, other than the fact that offers are being received from entities in the Mideast, including Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And on my role is to stay out of that, let MTK handle that part of it, and let me see what I come up with in Macau.
I'm guessing there might be big site offers from Saudi Arabia and Qatar for a potential Manny Pacquiao and Terence Crawford fight, Bob. Is that realistic as well?
Yeah, or from Macau. Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're working on. That's, I think that the countries in the Mideast, Macau, will look at this as a tremendous opportunity. In Macau, they need something big to start up the economy, to bring people back. The properties there are now up and running with very few customers. So they need something to bring the customers in. In the Mideast, they are really looking to build up the tourist industry in these countries, and these events will help them to do that. And they realize now that it's more affordable than it might be before, because we don't have realistic options to do the fights either in the UK or in the US because of the prohibition against doing these events with spectators present. That's where it's at. How it comes out, whether it goes right to a Fury Joshua fight, or we have these two interim fights, whatever happens will become clear within the next couple of weeks, where the Pacquiao-Crawford fight can happen. If it happens, that'll also become clear within the next couple of weeks. But again, right now, it's out of my hands, it's out of Eddie's hands, it's out of Frank's hands, because we know that whatever side of the Atlantic we're on, it's out of our hands because we don't know when we can go ahead with live audiences, which are necessary if we do these fights, one or more of these fights in the United States or in the UK.
I'm guessing in terms of that Pacquiao-Crawford fight, China will obviously recognise how much of a draw Manny would be in that region and will throw a lot of money at that Pacquiao-Crawford fight, let's say.
Well, you have to understand, we have a great experience with Manny fighting in Macau. We did a couple of big fights in Macau, huge successes. We know that the Chinese customers, whether they come from the Philippines or from all the customers or from Hong Kong, are very willing to watch a fight at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. I mean, we're not experimenting with that. We know that we sold out both events that Manny participated in a couple of years ago. So, yeah, I mean, Manny has been tried and tested as a draw card in that area. But again, if they decide to, for example, if their appetite is to do a Fury Wilder fight, which may be very attractive, big guys, heavyweights are always very attractive. They may opt for that, hoping to get an audience from the UK. And also there's a big audience, big number of Brits in Hong Kong who are less than an hour away from Macau. So they may be looking at that. Again, they're the buyers. I mean, it's like, if I owned a store and I have all these, this clothing laid out, some people opt for one style and other people for another style. So it's up to the buyers to determine which way they want to go.
Well, whether it's fights in Las Vegas, fights in China, fights in Saudi Arabia, we just want to see boxing as back as possible and obviously the world back to normal. Bob Arum, thank you very much for talking to IFL-TV. Is there anything you'd like to add, Bob?
No, just everybody should keep safe. I know that in the UK, you're going to start getting live boxing, whether from Frank or Eddie, in probably July. We hope to start up in the States in June, all without audiences. We're making arrangements now for the testing, for everything appropriate, so we keep everybody safe and sound. And I hope that we'll be seeing live boxing from the United States as early as June. and live boxing from the UK as early as July. And sometime down the line, we'll be watching it with spectators.
Definitely. Bob Arum, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.